Bookkeepers Podcast. I'm Zoe Whitman. I'm here with Kathryn Frimond from your local bookkeeper. Hi, Kathryn. How are you?
Hello. I'm okay, thank you. How are you?
It's really nice to chat to you. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. We were just saying before we started, I think you're more prepared than me, Kathryn. So I think it's been...
I'm a pro. That's why I've been on 3 times. I think this is my 3rd time on the podcast.
So we can call you a friend of the Bookkeepers Podcast now. Kathryn, friend of the Bookkeepers Podcast, is here with us to talk about her practice. I love that. So Kathryn, you run a practice called Your Local Bookkeeper. I know about your background. I know that you have a very strong niche, and I'm really excited to talk about that and how you're growing. So I know you've had some staff changes and things happening as well. But do you want to start by telling me a bit about you and what you did before you started your practice?
Yeah, so I've been running Your Local Bookkeeper for almost 4.5, 5 years now. Before that, I was a banker, a corporate banker in the city, and I did all the classic kind of worked long hours, commuted an hour to work, things like that. And I think a lot of people have said it this week and on previous podcasts. As a result, I'm kind of burnt out. I had a few occasions of illness where I totally burnt out. And it was during one of those occasions off sick that I retrained as a bookkeeper, to try and put my finance knowledge into something else. And I worked also in recovery, so I saw a lot of businesses that were failing and needed that help of a finance team. But I then so I retrained as a bookkeeper, went back to work in the city, and quickly got pregnant. So kind of stuck it out to reap the rewards of maternity leave. And whilst I was on maternity leave, I was then actually made redundant, which I think most people gasp at, but I was delighted because it wasn't what I wanted to do. So after a period of kind of maternity leave, looking after my little one, we decided to do some more, my level 3 ICB training, and I do the books for my husband's business. And I sort of put the feelers out there for a couple of other businesses, and it's grown from there. Actually, my first proper client, that wasn't my husband, was a referral on LinkedIn, just by saying that I'd changed my job and this is what I was doing now. And they're now actually my biggest client as well. So definitely power of social media on that one.
Wow.
So yeah, that's where it all started.
So tell me, when you started using, people often say, oh, I don't like, particularly when they're changing career or changing direction, that it's really interesting to me that you got this referral on LinkedIn. And I just wonder, how did you feel about putting yourself out there, having gone from your corporate role and I guess being connected to corporate people? How did that feel, putting yourself out there?
Terrifying. I hated it. I still don't, well, I'm a bit better now, but I still don't really use LinkedIn as much as I could, because to me, I've got this corporate life, which was Kathryn Ferguson, which is my maiden name. And that was very much, I was a banker and a manager, and I had a team, and it was a different person to what I am and who I am now. So when I first put out, it was actually, I had a coach as part of the redundancy package, and they said, you have to put your stuff on LinkedIn, tell people what you're doing. So I did the classic sort of, I've left X Bank where I was, and now I've retrained and I'm a bookkeeper, and this is what I'm doing now. And someone that I knew, just an acquaintance, had maybe met once, commented good luck, and they were connected with my client, who said, I need a bookkeeper, rang me up the next day, and I started with an hourly rate with him, but now he pays a lot more and is a big client. So it was literally just the link of that, and I was really scared to put my name out there because they're different people, and what would people think, oh, she's just becoming a bookkeeper, like part-time, like people have this idea of a bookkeeper being a part-time mum, which I was, I suppose. But yeah, and even now I still don't like to do it, but actually I signed up a client last week who's my old boss. So it pays.
Well,
it worked out.
It's really interesting what you said about like I get it. It's the like part-time mum earning some money. And I think this is why we don't value ourselves enough to charge properly. Like, I really think this is like an inherent problem in bookkeeping, and why we need to change this. Like, I feel like there's this really important journey and change that's happening right now. So we're all part of this. Everyone here who's watching this needs to be part of making sure that we know that we're more than earning a bit of money on the side while we're looking after our families, or whatever it is that we're starting our businesses for. But Jo says regularly, bookkeeping isn't like the choice of profession that people make at school.
No.
It's usually something we fall into, and I think it's important to remind people of that. Yeah.
And my mum was a bookkeeper, so that's why I sort of thought of it as an option. And to be honest, I did start it as I'll do this on the side and we'll see how it goes. But now it's definitely my business and my profession. And I think sometimes people say to me, how's that little bookkeeping business going? I'm like, it's not that little actually. And it's, yeah. So, but then to get that kind of validation from my boss, my old boss, ringing me up and saying, Kathryn, I just need you to sort this out. I've made a real mess of it. Was, yeah, amazing. It was a real validation that actually I'm good at my job and I've come a long way since I left the bank.
Yeah, we've got to like tune into those wins and remember them, haven't we?
Yeah, that was a big win for me.
So what were the first clients you had? You worked for your husband and you got a recommendation on LinkedIn. What kind of clients did you find first of all? And was it all LinkedIn, or how did you connect with those people?
So the other thing I did was put a flyer out in my husband's serviced office. So another client that I have came from that. They saw a flyer. But now almost all of my clients are either referrals or a part of networking. To be honest, the pandemic was a big thing for me. For a lot of people, it was probably quite a scary time, but I like being virtual. I like being a remote bookkeeper, and actually it gave me the confidence. I didn't have to go and meet people, so it gave me the confidence to get online and do things. So actually, when the pandemic hit and everyone was in lockdown and going virtual, that gave me the opportunity to get on some networking that I never would have done before, and meet people that I would never have met face to face. So that's quite good. So I'm part of a few networking groups, and I would say all of my business now comes from either that networking group or a referral from one of the other bookkeepers in the Success Lounge. Okay.
And so do you niche, how I know that there's an area that you're specifically interested in, but are all of your clients in that niche? Tell me a little bit about that.
No, they're not. So now so for those that don't know, my niche is sustainability and working with clients that have an interest in bettering the environment, bettering working conditions, and just generally making the planet a better place. I would say around 50% of my book is now that, so 50% of my client base, and now 100% of new like prospects is now in that area, unless there may be a friend that, or like my old boss rang me up and asked. I don't plan on, so some people are really strict with their niche and they'll only work in that sector. My opinion is that if I can make the world a better place by sort of training other people as well, I'm not going to turn down business, but they all come to me knowing that that is my sort of speciality. And a few clients now say, oh, I've changed this because you told me off for having a coffee cup, or I think I've done it to you a couple of times, Zoe, actually. Or I'm cloud-based because I thought, what would Kathryn do? Or whatever it is. So not all of my clients are in that niche, but I would say now I'm in a position with my business where I can pick and choose who I work with, and I wouldn't, for example, ever work with someone that worked for BP or a business that I'm not comfortable with. They'd be straight out. And if any of the businesses that I work with went into something that I wasn't comfortable with, I would get rid of them as well.
Yeah, and you're really clear on those values and like what is and isn't right for you. And I think like having that like gut feeling is really important with like going in the right direction.
And that's definitely like that's something that I fell into because I personally am quite strict about my sort of recycling and the way I live and our family live. So it made sense to then do that in my business as well.
Yeah, amazing. And I know you live and breathe everything that you talk about. So when I think about like your values, I know like I wouldn't expect you to have like, I don't know, for me to send you a load of paperwork if I was your client. I wouldn't expect that to be the way we would work together. So I know you live and breathe everything that you talk about. So with the kind of client base that you have, do you support them all in a specific way? Do you have like one way of working, or do you have all sorts of different services for people?
So the only kind of similarity, I suppose, is our software. So we only work with Xero, and that's because, well, I fell into working with Xero, but they also happen to have a net zero plan. And they're, in terms of software companies, they're quite forward thinking in offsetting their emissions, and they're working to net zero. Everyone goes through Dext for receipts, and we use Fathom, and I'm just about to move over to Float for cash flow purposes. So in terms of that, they're all on the same process, but they're all so different. So they're all require different things. Most of them need cash flow forecasting. And I've kind of lost train of thought of what the question was.
No, it's okay. I'm just curious. Like, often we talk about, like Joe and I will often talk about niching. I mean, it's something we talk about in the Bookkeeper Rises, and then we know that once you have a niche, you can work in a specific way with your clients, and that helps you to grow your business because you have a system and a way of working. And by like refining the software tools that you're using in your business, that means that as you bring team members on board, you haven't got to say, oh, well, for this one, you need to do this whole other thing that I haven't taught you. So it's like helping you to not need to be involved in every single part of your business because you know that these are replicated.
So software wise, absolutely, they're all on the same page. And I have started to find now that when clients are coming through, I know other clients will be able to help them. So I have a green tech company that's helping someone with their back end of their website, and that person wants to do stuff in colleges and schools, and I've got a client that does something in schools. So actually being in that one area and niching in that one area has allowed me to refer my clients to each other. And also there's a lot of grant funding in that area. So it is a lot of, I know how to do that. Same as the way that Joe does with the salons, I suppose. She knows that, she was talking the other day about insurance, and she knows that insurance was too high for what they were doing. So you do get to know definitely what's the kind of industry norm. Yeah,
I love that. At the beginning, when you were telling us about why you started your practice and how you used to think of it as your like, oh, it's kind of a side hustle, but now it very much is your business. What changed that made you realise that, oh, hang on a minute, this is a thing. This isn't a side hustle anymore.
Yeah. So I started it as a side hustle, not a side hustle, but as something that I could do alongside looking after my son, which I think a lot of people start that way. And what changed? Well, one March evening, I do remember sitting watching the Bookkeepers boot camp and thinking, actually, hang on, my son's now at preschool full time. I can do this. So signed up for the Success Lounge I've got to say, it's all kind of escalated from there. I don't have to tell people in the Success Lounge this, but the community support and the way that everyone uplifts each other is so valuable and incredible. And I think that uplift has encouraged me to move it from being a part-time side hustle to this is my job, and now I'm thinking about employing people. I've got subcontractors, more work than I can manage. And actually the tipping point was deciding on my niche and deciding that these are the type of businesses that I want to work with, and I'm going to focus in on that. So I focused all my marketing on that, and all like my social media, any groups that I joined were all to do with that. And that's been the tipping point. And I think I've worked on it probably for the last year. I think I've been in the Success Lounge for 2 years, an early adopter. I think I've worked solely on that niche for about a year, and it's now starting to come through because I'm starting to be known as that person, I hope.
You are, you get the recommendations.
Yeah.
Like someone will say, oh, does anyone know anyone who knows something about this? And then you see, this is the thing. I think this is the power of saying, this is my area, even though that means you don't rule out other clients. People know you, and everything you put out is like has trees on.
Yeah, it's very green. Look, I've even got a plant in the background there. So I think I am becoming known as that. But what I would say to people that are maybe starting out on that journey is it takes a long time to get traction. And I've had to go, I've been posting about it on social media for a year about how I like plants and tree hugging. And it's only now that people are like, oh yeah, she likes trees. So it does take a while, and I know there's been a few comments from people saying, oh, I'm not very good at social media, and I'm not sure about my niche. But once you've decided, go with it, and I think it does pay in the end, but it takes a little bit of time.
I think it's that direction. It's like when you were talking about the software that you work with, and just knowing, well, that's the right software for me because I am aligned with their plan for the future and their vision of what the world's going to look like. So it's like,
and I've changed software on that basis as well. I've just got Dext to go.
Okay.
And I'm quite open to having conversations with the software providers as well. So so that was definitely the tipping point of, right, this is my niche, this is what I'm going for. And I think in the last year, my turnover and things has come up a lot, but I'm sure we're going to come on to a difficult year. So
okay, so so the whole of this week is around like how we grow our businesses despite of the recession, and I know your business is growing, and I know you just said like you've got more work than you can handle, and you've like been talking about it's subcontractors and employees. So tell me, like, what's happened for you over the last year or so, and how has the business changed and changing for the future?
So I probably really started honing in on this niche in late 2021. And I remember in December 2021, I had this whole plan about 2022. I think I probably ran it past you, Zoe, I'm going to get this employee and this is how many clients I need to get and things like that. And then 2022 arrived, and on New Year's Day, we were rushed into hospital with my son, who was then blue lighted to another hospital because he was diagnosed with leukemia, which meant, everything just stopped. So we had 3.5 weeks in hospital with him, followed by around 6 months where we couldn't go out anywhere because he was vulnerable. And that's an ongoing now illness he gets treated for another 3 years. I think his treatment finishes in 2025. So 2022 was a difficult year. Obviously, my whole business just sort of came to a stop, but my clients definitely still needed that support. And I think Laura mentioned earlier about, 2 weeks. Oh, no, it was Emma yesterday said 2 weeks kind of feels like a holiday and they can deal with that. But when you're telling them that you're going to be out of the business for 6 months or 3 years, whilst you've got better things to do, quite frankly, how long does that goodwill last? And there was a lot of worry about how long that goodwill lasts. I was sort of supported incredibly by other bookkeepers, and this is really the value of the Success Programme and the Success Lounge. My VA picked up everything, allocated all the work, like couldn't be more grateful for that. Other bookkeepers picked up the work and covered it all for me, particularly whilst we were in hospital. And then it was just a case of kind of getting back to normal. And I guess the situation now is that I could get a phone call any second, and we're in hospital. At the beginning of January, we're in hospital for a week. But sort of going to so that's kind of my story, but the adversity of that and the positive is, despite all of that, my business, the turnover's doubled in the last year.
Wow.
And that adversity kind of gave me the push I think I needed to get subcontractors in and get an employee and give my VA more work. And I had to step out of the business. I didn't have a choice. So I think the same with kind of recession and anyone that faces something that they weren't expecting, actually it forces your hand and it forces you to grow the business. And as a result, I've been able to grow my business because I've got more help. So in a way, it was a good thing.
You're such an inspiration. Like you just get on with it, Kathryn. Like it's so inspiring to.
You should see me behind the scenes, like.
I can't imagine. I can't ever imagine you being like that. Like it's. I just always say I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you I know you have to, but you just keep going. And I know that you've had lots of like amazing people in the group who you work with, and I love. It's not just a business thing. It's like friendships are built here, aren't they? And I think that is just a whole other level. When it's not just about saying, hey, can you handle that for me? It's like people want to be there and support you.
Yeah.
So,
and they, without naming names, they were all amazing. And, some of them worked for free for me and they didn't want to be paid and just picked up. It was January, it was self-assessment season. And one person just picked up 10 self-assessments and ran with them to keep the business going. And now, I outsource for them continuously because why wouldn't I? But it really forced my hand into, all right, I've got to outsource, and it meant that then I could grow as well.
You mentioned that your turnover's grown. Obviously, your costs have increased because you're using subcontractors more. Like from your point of view, owning a business, is it as profitable for you as it was before when you had less clients?
It's more profitable. So end of 2021, I'm really bad at taking money out of my own business.
But for the future there.
I couldn't have taken any money out. Now I feel like I can have a salary and pay myself. I'm just about to go over to limited so that I can pay myself a proper salary. I've got one person that does kind of ad hoc year-end things for me, so that's a bit kind of peak and troughs with cost, but then I've got 2 people that are working with me all the time. I've cut back on things like software, things that I don't need, and I think that was part of my niche as well. Like I know where I need to be, so I don't need to be in all these other Facebook groups or subscription groups. I don't need to be part of the local networking because that's not where I need to be. So costs have gone up, but then I've been able to take on the work and I've systemized and been able to take on the work a lot better. So yeah, it's going well. It's good.
How did it feel lots, like it sounds like you had lots of subcontractors coming in like very suddenly. How did it feel? Like, how were your systems at that point? Were you ready to hand things over? No. And
No,
so what journey
it's still not.
Okay, so that's a work in progress.
Yeah, and I think so. Obviously, last year it was just firefighting to make sure deadlines were met. The beginning of this year, I've had more time to think about the system. So we're on Accountancy Manager at the moment. It's getting all those processes in place. We had a team meeting this morning, and we can just say, right, look on Accountancy Manager, and that's the work that you need to do today. Another subcontractor just works on certain clients, so they do it however they need to do it to get the work done. But yeah, last year there was no systems, but it as I say, it just forced my hand. I had to then spend the time putting the systems in place and making sure that all the clients, actually, because clients used to send me just a dribs and drabs of stuff, and one might send it to Dext, and then someone else might send it to HubDoc, and I just said, no, everyone needs to be on Dext. Everyone needs to send it in by this date, in this way, and this is how I do, VAT returns, things like that. I had to, so that I could bring someone in to do it.
It takes courage to say, this is how we're going to work now. But you're all like happy to change.
Yeah, and I think that they have to change. Again, I'm in a fortunate position that I can pick and choose a little bit who I work with. So I had a discovery call last week, and they're on QuickBooks, and I don't work on QuickBooks, and they were my ideal client. We got on really, really well. This was a referral from someone in the Success Lounge as well. We got on really, really well, but they wanted to work with me, so they're happy to change to Xero. But I said, no way am I doing QuickBooks. We'll do it to the end of the year, until April, and then you have to change to Xero, and they were happy with that. So I think it's difficult when you're starting out because you want the work and you want to get the money in the bank, especially if you've left a job. But I think it does pay to be quite specific about what you use and what you don't. I think it definitely pays.
There's this element as well of you've narrowed down your focus, like you're really clear, like this is the area that I'm expert in. If you want to work with me, I am the expert here, and this is the way that I recommend you work, and this is the way I can do this in the best way for you. And you have that like authority because you're seen as the expert there, and I think that helps you to have the confidence to say, no, actually, we're going to do it like this.
Yeah, and it's changed my mindset. I've had a mindset shift as well from I could charge £20 an hour and have lots of clients, or I can charge, I'm working towards a recurring revenue fee of £500 a month. And, I can charge that and have less clients, have more free time. And definitely I've realized in the last 12, 13 months that you can't work yourself into the ground, and you can't assume that your child is going to be there when you go pick them up from school, and you can't assume that something's not going to go wrong tomorrow. So I need to systemize, and I need to push things away from me so that I can be there for him. So
yeah. Oh, Kathryn,
that's given me more confidence. It's been a blessing in disguise because it's given me more confidence to say, actually, it's totally wrong for me to be working. I mean, we've talked, I was working evenings, all day, evenings, sending my child off to the grandparents, and then it all flipped, and I just don't want to do that anymore. So I have to get in, but I still like the money. So I just have to get into a position where I've got the money, but can spend it at home, can take him on school trips, got a school disco on Thursday, go to the school disco, things like that.
Yeah, you said right at the beginning, you were talking about having burnout, having worked in banking, and And you said also, you know, you like identified as being with your maiden name as a manager, and do you know, you kind of have got back to there. Like you kind of you've like gone in the circle.
But I like to think I'm nicer than I was.
I can't imagine you weren't nice, but I don't know you then. But it's really interesting how you can adapt like everything from the past, because I think people, you know, going into a new industry or a new profession can feel scary, and I think there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I've got imposter syndrome, but it just shows how translatable everything is from whatever you've done in the past. So you've used all of those skills to build your business now, and I suppose I just really want to be sure that you're not at risk of that burnout again if you're feeling that you've got, you know, so much work right now. Do you ever like notice those signs now, and how do you manage that?
Have a panic attack, normally, just a quick panic, 5 minutes or so. And then I'm a big list person, so writing a list, and you've just got to, something always has to give, and unfortunately, you know, it has to be work. So I have to push that onto someone else. I've got a lot better at realizing and saying no to people as well. And actually niching's really helped with that, because I can say no to people that don't align with my values. Excuse me. But yeah, I do notice signs of that, and that's why I've got to get an employee.
Yeah. So so right now you're working with subcontractors at the moment, and you're looking to bring somebody in as an employee, as a bookkeeper, to support you?
Yes. Yeah, I think definitely as a bookkeeper. I really like the team that I work with at the moment. But yeah, a bookkeeper, someone probably that's in the office, I don't know, part-time. It's still a work in progress, but it's definitely on my list of things to do. And then listening to Emma yesterday made me really realize that actually I was a bit like Emma, you know, I just want to work on my own and have full autonomy and control over everything. But again, the last 12 months has kind of flipped that, and you've just got to let it go. It's just not that important.
Yeah.
So I need to manage that, and I need to draw from, you're saying about the kind of corporate world, that managerial side, and I know from that side what kind of employer I don't want to be. So that's interesting, that I don't want to be that same manager that I was 5 years ago. So
yeah. Oh, I'm excited for you. Like it's such a journey you've been on, and I really think you're such an inspiration. Somebody said here, as a mum who just burnt out in January, I needed to hear your story today, and I think a lot of us need
bless.
Write
a list is what I would say to, I don't know who it was, but I would say write a list, and you know, split it into what I absolutely need to do, which I bet is like 2 out of 100 things like that only you can do, and what can someone else do, and just get rid of it. Like it's a steep learning curve into like letting things go, and I'm a real control freak, so I like to know that everything's done in a certain way, but other things are more important, and you've got to just push it out. Push it out to someone else. There's always someone else that wants to do it, so let them have it, and you have your time back.
Amazing. Oh, Kathryn, thank you so much for talking about your business today and sharing your story.
Okay. Thanks for having me back again. I promise I'll leave it a little bit longer before I come back again next time.
It was really nice to chat. Can you let people know how they can connect with you and find out more about your business?
Yeah. So my I'm kind of let's move over to LinkedIn. Let's do it. Let's make a decision today. So I'm on LinkedIn as Kathryn Frimond, or all my other handles are Your Local Bookkeeper with underscores underneath, or I'm in the Success Lounge and the general Bookkeepers, the Six-Figure Bookkeeper group. So I'm around.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kathryn, and thank you everyone who's been here listening to this story today. Joe and I are going to be back at 6:30 this evening. hopefully not as interrupted by children as I was yesterday. And we're going to be talking about your ideal client and the particular challenges that they might be facing right now during a recession. So come and join us. That's going to be live in the Six Figure Bookkeepers Club. We'll see you later. Thanks, Kathryn. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.